Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I like to approach a laydown when I'm flipping. So, I'm going to go just like I've been doing in my last few rigging videos. I'm going to kind of go right through the rod, reel, line, and I'm actually going to get out on the water on this video and show you exactly what my approach is when fishing laydowns. I think fishing laydowns thing is an art to it. I think obviously it's an art to any style of fishing, but specifically, when you're fishing a laydown, I don't think it's just pull up to it, start fishing, and catch what's there. I think the best flippers and the best shallow fishermen, I think they have an approach to fishing laydowns that makes them a little bit better fishermen than the next guy. Let's start it off. You know how these videos go. We're going to go through the rod, the reel, the line, and through some of my favorite baits. So we're starting off for this is basically obviously a conversation that's pretty broad in general. There's all different types of vegetation and structure that you can do when you're flipping. In this particular video, I'm talking about flipping wood, docks, flipping basically hard structure. Open water, hard structure is pretty much the context of what we're talking about flipping here. So if you live in like upstate of South Carolina, highland reservoirs, where basically we have wood, we have docks, we have bank transitions with a little bit of rock on it here and there. Not talking about punching mats, and not talking about flipping around lily pads, talking about basically flipping hard structure. This is what all this equipment will pretty much cover you on. What I have for a rod, okay, 7'6" heavy action. This rod that you see here is actually a prototype that you guys will be able to get your hands on here in the very near future from Favorite. It's called a Pro Series. This is a rod series that all of us, all the pro guys on the pro staff kind of got together and designed for what we wanted, for every technique. We needed a rod for flipping. We designed a rod for that. We needed a rod for throwing jerk baits and small crankbaits. We got a rod for that. We got rods for throwing Ned rigs and finesse presentations. We got a pro series for everything that we cover or that we'll have to fish. On our respective tours, we designed a rod series for it. 7'6" heavy action. So I want a meat stick. I want something that I'll be able to turn that fish around with. Something that has some backbone to it. I'm not really looking for anything to have that parabolic bend here. I want something to parabolic him in my boat. All right, I don't want anything really jelly, or I'm not waiting for him to get the bait good or none of that crap. I want to set the hook, bring the fish in the doggone boat with this rod. Okay, so rod 7'6" heavy action. All right, and like I said, this is the Pro Series. I'm using a Lose Hyper Mag. Here again, this is one of those situations where I do like a fast reel. This is an 801 gear ratio reel. I like to be able to take up the line, bring him up out of there. If I was fishing grass, maybe I would choose a different gear ratio reel. Fishing open water, flipping, laydowns, docks, bank structure, whatever, stumps, stuff like that, I want to be able to pick that line up and bring him to the boat. Okay, so I'm using a fast reel, 801 gear ratio reel. Lose Hyper Mag is what I got here. 17 to 25 pound test line is what I'm going to use. Predominantly for most situations, it's going to be 20 on here. But if you're really feeling like, yeah, I don't want to go in there too heavy, or perhaps you maybe want to get 20-25 pound test is going to be a little bit harder to manage than 15 or 17. Maybe you're just having some time, a tough time with just managing coils, then go down to 17 pound test. So 17 pound test, Strike King Pro Grade fluorocarbon is what I'm using on here for my line. And that's the setup. 7'6" heavy, Favorite Pro Series. Something that you guys, if you want to get your hands on right now and you don't want to wait for the Pro Series to come out, one that I've used in the past is the Favorite Rush 7.3 heavy. That's a good rod to use too. Very simple setup. Let's talk about some baits. It's almost always going to be a Texas rig for me, just a traditional Texas rig. If you don't know what that is, I'll leave a link in the profile of some of my Texas rig tips. I like to throw or flip, shouldn't say throw, but I usually flip 3 types of baits when you're talking about flipping and pitching around laydowns or hard structure docks, whatever the case may be. Obviously, you know, a lot of people like to fish jigs. I don't know why, but I'm not really a jig guy, okay? You can do whatever you want to with that. You don't like it, you can say, I just don't catch a lot of fish on jigs. Ironically, I do a lot of flipping and pitching. This is basically the 3 categories of baits that I use when I'm going to grab a soft plastic and start approaching laydowns, docks, hard structure. I'm going to use a creature bait like this one. This is the Z-Man Palmetto Bugs. You know that one's going to be pretty near and dear to my heart. Z-Man Palmetto Bugs, just a creature bait. It's got a little bit thicker body. It's a little bit bigger profile than a lot of creature baits. So I'm going to use him, creature style bait. I'm also going to flip muddier water. Or if I want something a little slower fall, I'm going to use this guy right here. That's called a turbo craws. Turbo craws has these little kicking craws on it. You flip it in there, and the tail's kick when it's going down. I like that guy when I'm flipping in a little bit more stain water, want a little bit more control fall. With the beaver bait, it just kind of plummets down to the bottom, right? Well, with the creature bait, since it has those tails in there that kick, it draws a little bit more attention when it's falling, and it'll fall a little bit more control fashion as well. And there's times where I like to flip a stick bait. All right, it doesn't seem like that glorious of a flip bait, but dude, like this guy right here, I flipped this guy. This is the Mag Fatties, Z-Man Mag Fatties. I want to say it's like 7 inches long, 7 1/4 inches long. I'll flip this guy too. Another buddy calling. Who is that? We're gonna finish the video this time. I'll call you back, Mark. I love you, but I'm gonna call you back. We'll get through this video now and call my boy back. 7 1/4 inches right here. And you see primarily in all these baits, you see I've got dark colors. So I got black and blue, and this is a June bug that I got right here. So I'm gonna use a stick bait. The reason I like to use a stick bait, fish get so accustomed sometimes to seeing a creature bait, seeing a craw bait go down. They get so accustomed to that sometimes that just the dead stick action of just a 7 1/4 inch long stick bait falling through a laydown, there's something about it. I don't know if you ever watch it go through the water column, when you flip a stick bait, it's pretty doggone erratic. And sometimes that's what triggers a strike, because when you flip a stick bait like this in there, it falls and it may go to the left, falls and may go to the right. Even though it doesn't have a lot of kicking action, it's so erratic and it's so simple, I think it draws a strike sometimes a little bit better. It's really kind of like a finesse flipping type of deal here. So these are the 3 baits that I'm predominantly talking about when I am flipping laydowns. Turbo craws, and then we use a creature bait, and then I'm also going to use this guy right here. This is just a stick bait. All 3 are baits that are really going to work good when you're talking about flipping and pitching around laydowns or hard structure. Obviously, for this one, I'm going to use a little bit heavier weight. It's a bigger piece of plastic. I need a little bit more weight. Probably going to be anywhere from 3/8 to a 3/4 on this guy. And then on like the turbo craws, 3/16 ounce to a 1/4 ounce usually is probably going to be where you want to be. Sinker wise, I would use maybe a 3 or 4/0 hook in the turbo craws. When you're talking about the Palmetto Bugs, 4 or 5/0 hook in this guy. And then you got the good old stick bait. What we're gonna go use here, this could be anywhere for as light as 1/8 ounce, okay? 1/8 ounce sinker, and as big as a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce. Just depends on how thick the well, obviously we're not talking about vegetation, but mostly it's gonna be somewhere between a 1/2 and an 1/8 ounce, but you can go heavier than that if you want. 5/0 hook is what I like to use on these guys. Straight shank, or I may even use a offset, just a regular offset worm hook. That's what I'm going to use on those 3 baits. So that's my setup. Let's go on the water, and I'm going to show you exactly how my approach is to using these setups for catching bass on laydowns. All right, here we go. So here's my laydown right here in front of me. Today I'm just fishing it's real simple, just a curl tail worm, and it's really pretty simple, my approach to how I'm going to fish a laydown. Let me get the boat in position, because boat position is actually everything. A couple things you want to pay attention to when you're flipping a laydown is how the laydown is actually oriented towards the bank. Is it going to be coming out this way, out towards the middle? Is it laying vertically or horizontally along the bank? Because that's going to have everything to do with how you position your bait in the lay down. Now I can see this one, it looks like it's laying, you know, it's coming towards me. All the limb structure seems to be coming this way. So I'll position my boat in front of it. So when I pitch my bait up there, I'm bringing my worm there with the lay down. I don't want to be bringing it across. It causes a lot of problems. One problem it causes is I'm going to hang more. Now that I kind of got it coming out towards the towards me, like with the way that the limbs are going, I'm going to hang way less. So taking your time, being patient with your boat position and getting the boat position just right, so when you make the flip in there, that you don't hang up as bad. The other thing it does is, obviously, if you get a fish on, you want to be able to get the fish out of the lay down, and wait until I get the boat position exactly where I need it to be. It'll help me get the fish out once I get him on. Now, first pitch I'm going to pitch that I'm going to make when I pull up to a lay down, probably almost always going to be the outsides. Get the easy fish first. Don't go up there, try to make a real hard pitch, then get your bait hung up and you blow the whole brush pile out. Now nobody gets to catch anything. So the first pitch is going to be to the outside. I see some limbs outside of the water. Obviously we know this is a big tree down, so there's going to be even limbs way out here in 5, 6, 7 foot of water that we can't normally see. So I'll hit those where I may think there's some laydowns first, especially if it's stained water. If it's clear water, you got to be a little bit more careful about where you make your first cast, because they can pick up your bait a lot easier. But this is stained water application here. I'm going to flip it over here, hitting the outside first, because I want to get that easy fish. I don't want to go in there and get hung up and then have to blow the whole thing out. So this one is kind of laying down, really easy lay down the fish. I hit those outsides just like that, flip it in there. It's really important to be quiet. You want that bait to hit the water very quietly. See, I'm just pitching it in there. How you stop it, how you make it hit the water quietly is you're just going to stop it with your thumb as soon as it hits the water, right before it hits the water. You're going to stop your spool from spinning. That'll slow your bait down and let it cascade down perfectly. Something to think about too is your bait style. There's going to be days where, you know, something with a curl tail does better, like what I've got here. This is just a 6-inch Z-Man sawtail worm. It's got a lot of action to it, but the water's stained, so it helps me out because it has a little bit of water displacement. It's throwing off some water, makes it a little easier to catch, easier for fish to find it rather. So I'm just going to flip it in there. Now that I've hit the outside edges, you see I just made that last flip. I flipped a little bit further in there. Now I'm going into the meat now. Now I'm going up there, you know, way back in there. I didn't even move the boat. Kept the boat in the same place. One thing that's going to help you, stay off of that trolling motor or that paddle or whatever you're in, whatever kind of boat you're in. Stay off of it as much as possible. Position the boat. Power poles come into handy, you know, with something like this, but you can position the boat and keep it in one spot. Stay off of that trolling motor. That's going to pay for you later off. You see, I made a long pitch there. Be very aware when you make those long pitches like that. When you commit to making a long pitch, make sure you can get it out, especially in a tournament situation. You know, you can make that long pitch, but you better make sure you got a pathway of getting that fish out, or you have the equipment to. Now, the way I'm flipping right now, that was a very poor choice to do, because I got 20-pound test fluorocarbon and medium heavy action rod. He's probably going to take me for a ride if I get a 5 or 6 pounder on in behind that stump, up and over that. The best thing for me to do is to set my butt down, get the boat in position, go around it again, power pole down, and then start fishing over there instead of trying to make that long pitch. If I can get the boat over there to where the fish is, the best thing to do is get the boat over there, because you want to have a clear lane to bring your bait out, and you want to have a clear lane to bring the fish out once you flip it in there. I like to be very conscious of my weight size. I'm fishing very shallow water today, and I've got a fairly light sinker on, but there's days where even though I'm fishing fairly shallow like that, I'll still put on a 3/8 or a half, because I want that bait to go in that lay down and plumb it down. Times when I'm going to do something like that is like clear water. When the water is very clear, I might try to use something that's got a little bit more, that falls a little faster, a little quicker, doesn't have quite as many appendages on it. That's going to have a lot to do with the baits that I like to use when I'm flipping laydowns is water clarity and just the time of the year and what the fish are actually doing. In this case right now, springtime of the year, fish are a little bit lethargic because the water temperature is rising. So it's pretty cold. Water is in the 50s, getting into the 60s, which is, you know, that sounds warm depending on what part of the country you're from. If you're from Florida, that's extremely cold. Where I'm at, that's about where it should be, but the fish are spawning and they're fairly lethargic. So I want something that stays in the strike zone a long time. So I got a lighter sinker on and something that'll just kind of just swims and cascades through the water column as I'm fishing. That's the way I'm going to fish this type of laydown. Now there's different types of laydowns too. And I'm gonna move right up here, and there's a lot bigger laydown, and my approach to it's a little bit different than this one right here. Now I'm gonna paddle right over here. This is a lot bigger laydown right here, so it's got a lot more moving parts to it. A lot more stuff that I have to pay attention to even as I approach the laydown. Now look at this tree in front of me. You see this tree is a lot bigger. All right, a lot bigger than what we just fished. And first thing I noticed is since this is a bigger tree, more than likely there's going to be a lot more laydowns, a lot more wood structure out deeper. So first thing I'm going to do before I even get up there to the tree really closely where I can start seeing the limb structure is I'm going to stop way out here. All right, I'm going to stop right here. And look, I'm even just going to cast. I'm just going to cast right out here in the middle. I'm just going to cast right way out, you know, 5-10 foot away from the laydown. I always say pick up those easy fish first, right? Just pick up the easy fish. Pick up the ones that are easy first. Pitch out here on the edges. I'll see a little bit of green structure right out there. I'll flip to that first before I even get in there and start getting intimate with this laydown. I'm just going to take my time and work the edges first. Now, if I were to try to make a cast way back in there on that laydown right there and try to catch the fish that's all the way in the back, what I'm going to do, especially on a long cast, if I throw it back up in here like that, I'm more than likely going to hang up on some piece of wood, have to go over there, get it hung, and then blow the whole thing out. Even in a kayak, like when if I'm in my bass boat or kayak, it doesn't matter. Work those edges first. Now, after you've hit that, you can see it's a bigger tree, going to have more limbs, more structure out deeper because it's a bigger tree. It's going to extend further out into the water. After I've worked that pretty good, you know, I've worked this good now, made 3 or 4 casts out here, just kind of feel the limb structure and kind of get a feel for how this laydown is working. You can see this one is exactly perpendicular to the shoreline. It runs straight out. It doesn't run horizontally along the bank. It comes straight out into the lake. Now what I need to do, obviously as I'm in my boat, I would just trolling motor over there. But since I'm in my kayak, what I'm going to do now is set down, pull my anchor up. Okay, just gonna pull my anchor up a little bit. I'm just gonna slowly paddle just right over there too. Don't make a whole bunch of noise. If you're in a bass boat, turn that trolling motor down on 20%, 15%. Turn it as low as you can go and still get to where you need to get. Turn it down really low. Just gonna let the boat coast for a second. Once I get it in position to where I can make a really good flip, I see that the limb structure is working this way, so I want to make all my flips straight into the bank, if at all possible. See, I'm going to make all my flips straight into the bank, just like this. I don't want to get into throwing across limbs. That causes a lot of problems. I'm just going to flip it in just like that. You see, I'm just kind of just picking my bait up and letting it fall back down. Picking it up, letting it fall back down. Flip right over here. But I just want to keep it straight in front of me. The moment that I try to flip at an angle or cast at an angle, when I see all the limbs are coming straight out at me like that, you can do that. You run the risk of, especially if you know it's a high percentage, like it's one of those laydowns that's laying, it's the only laydown on this bank, and you know there's probably a fish there. You really need to be very peculiar about your cast. Now, if it's one where you're fishing all day, you fish 20 laydowns and haven't got a bite yet, yeah, you probably can, it's okay to get a little bit more, be a little bit more relaxed on how you make an angle. See, I cast it at an angle right there. There's not a lot of limb structure out here. You flip that guy over in there, right there you go, just like that. You want to bring it right on out. You don't want to be crossing the limbs. Here's a good example of what I mean by crossing the limbs. Obviously, this laydown right here is coming out in the middle of the lake. Now, I can do it out here a little deeper, okay? Now, if I had some limbs where I could see coming straight out, you wouldn't want to just flip across there if you can avoid it. You know, if you can put the boat in position to give you an advantage, always be patient with your flips so you can make that cast right. I can't stress enough, the worst mistake I see a lot of people make is being impatient with their cast and impatient with their flips. Wait until you get the boat in position to make the presentation. Because the moment you rush it and you try to make something happen or make a cast that you really shouldn't make with the position the boat in, that's when you get in trouble. That's when you hang up. There's going to be days where you can flip that bait in there, pull it in there, let it hit the bottom, let it drop, and then move on. I got to make a lot of flips to these laydowns in order to get the fish to bite, because the fish are spawning right now. So I'll make, you know, 10 flips, 8 flips in the same spot, just moving a foot, 2 foot to the left or right every time I make a flip. I'm having to really pay attention to how long I fish a spot. So hopefully that helps you out when you're fishing laydowns. I'm gonna be honest with you, your boat positioning is everything. It's almost like footwork to a football player or a boxer. Your footwork puts you in position to make the strike. So pay attention to that and get the right equipment. We talked a lot about the equipment that I use here for certain different types of flipping. Pay attention to that. Always pick the right equipment, right rod, right line for whatever your situation is. Clear water, deep water, shallow water, vegetation, whatever the case may be. It's gonna make a big difference how many fish you catch flipping.